spec-proof here with yet another review. Here we have this rather nicely specified Land Rover Range Rover Sport from 2011, and it really is a looker. Land Rover totally nailed it in design department when the Range Rover Sport was introduced back in 2005. This one here is a facelift version which they introduced in 2009. It's also equipped with the highest specification HSC trim. If I'm completely honest, I really prefer the pre-facelift version. I like the original grille way more, but otherwise they did a very nice job with the facelift. That said, I almost always tend to prefer pre-facelift versions of any car. Under the bonnet/hood we have a 3-liter bi-turbo diesel engine that produces 245 PS and a decent 600 Nm of torque. Altogether, over the lifespan of L320 Sport, there was 4 gasoline and 5 diesel powertrains available. So when you're in the market for a mid-size luxury SUV, what are the main competitors for the Range Rover Sport? Sometimes it seems that the Land Rover model range is confusing and people tend to compare it to the wrong models. Nowadays, the lineup could be even more confusing, thanks to the addition of the Evoque, Velar and the new Defender. You can easily compare the Sport to the X5, Cayenne and the ML, but it's totally fine to compare and cross-shop it to the Q7, RX, XC90 and Touareg also. When the Sport was released, everyone raved about its handling. It was as good or even better than the X5s or Cayennes, and that's completely true. Even today, 10 years later, it really drives well. I haven't driven any X5 yet, but I have driven an equivalent Cayenne from 2012 and it was fine, nothing special. Driving a Range Rover Sport is definitely more emotional and rather car-like. While cornering, you can feel the body roll, but it's pleasant, confidence-inspiring and feels natural. Steering feedback is decent and there's nice weight to it. That said, in urban environments and while parking or maneuvering, it's too heavy for my taste. The ride is alright, but I expected more from the air suspension. The weirdest part is that the car felt more comfortable the more I drove. It's like the air suspension needs some warming up or something. The bottom line is, I'm probably spoiled because of the S-Class I recently reviewed, which is 10 years older. Maybe my expectations were too high. Overall, the ride is comfortable, but nothing really that special. On the other hand, the seating position is ace. Superb visibility, large mirrors, high up position, high quality backup camera for a 10-year-old car, and I'm not used to driving larger cars. For me, the Sport is really up there size-wise, but I wasn't terrified at all. Parallel parking was a breeze. Interior noise levels are managed decently for the class, but still, it could be better. You can always tell the engine is there. Some vibrations are transferred into the interior at startup and while sitting in the traffic. But maybe the car needs some new engine mounts. On the other hand, wind noise is almost non-existent. That is impressive considering the height of the vehicle. The 3-liter bi-turbo diesel has adequate power. 0 to 100 km/h takes around 9 seconds, but in real life it feels much faster. In urban environments it has plenty of oomph to drive between the traffic lights. The bi-turbo application makes power delivery quite linear. Although the engine is rather noisy, I really like the turbo sounds while accelerating. It is not fast, but not terribly slow neither. It'll get the job done. Fuel economy is decent. Again, better than my old 2.3 liter VR5 Golf. Couple of odd details I noticed. It's so weird to see that Volvo switchgear for the windows. Remember, the Sport was released in 2005. At the time, Land Rover was owned by Ford, which means that Volvo was also owned by Ford. They're nice, durable, high-quality buttons. I also noticed the laziness of the folding feature for the side mirrors. They barely fold, which makes them a little bit useless. Maybe it's the case of this particular example, but I really don't know. But hey, at least they work, and they let you know when you have locked or unlocked the car. I also find it funny that the gear selector position labels are towards the passenger rather than the driver. That's obviously because of its origin, a subtle cost-cutting decision. Let's carry on with the pros and cons. As I mentioned earlier, the visibility is top-notch all around, complemented by huge side mirrors, decently placed, relatively high-resolution rearview camera, and commanding driving position. All of that leads to high confidence while parking. Next up, the climate system and its auto function. Yes, this is the first car ever that has an automatic climate I can trust 100%. And that's especially important in areas where winters are cold and summers are hot. On other cars, I barely use automatic function while it's cold because they won't work as they should. Usually you drive around and then boom, your windshield is all fogged up, or side windows, or both. But not with the Sport. Just leave it at auto and it will handle everything. Automatic AC at its finest. This particular example was also equipped with a windshield heater element, which was very effective. Believe it or not, but for me, the Sport was my very first time driving a British vehicle. Compared to the Germans, the leather seemed to be higher quality. It was way softer and felt more durable. All of the touch points were very high quality. Most of the visible areas were covered in leather, even some exposed plastic parts felt top tier grade. And yes, you can easily say that this Sport is worthy of its name. It drives like a car rather than SUV. Steering is on the firm side, which emphasizes a sporty road feel. The ride, although, is a little bit on the comfy side, which is suitable for the class. That's about it on the positives. We'll carry on with some criticisms. Let's start with the sound system. The HSC trim comes with an upgraded Harman Kardon unit. That meant that my expectations were pumped again, but unfortunately I was disappointed. Don't get me wrong, the system sounds totally fine, but that exactly is the problem. What's the point of a branded sound system when it sounds meh? There's no character in it. My first experience with a Harman Kardon unit was in 2006 Mercedes CLS 55 AMG, and that system really was something. Wide soundstage, nice punchy soft bass, and cliché crystal clear sound. And to clarify, I didn't make that judgment based on the radio, I listened to the CDs. Next up, the air suspension. Again, it was fine, but it's weird that 10 years older S-Class is way more comfortable. I guess my expectations were set too high again. By now it's clear I have developed a serious expectation problem of some kind. Some real criticisms. The driver's info display / trim computer in the cage cluster. It has nice graphics and is large for its age, but the use of space is just terrible. Text size is way too small despite the large area, and it doesn't show any radio or media info, only the trip computer, odometer, speed, and cruise control information, and that's about it. And then there's just nitpicking. The tailgate is massive, but it isn't automatic. In 2011, electric tailgates were getting more and more regular. Even most of the Nissan Muranos and Volvo XC60s had that feature at the time. In conclusion, after spending 3 days with the Range Rover Sport, I was quite sad when I had to return it to the owner. I got used to it way too fast, which is obviously a good thing. I think it's one of the best looking SUVs of all time. And I'm glad that the car is almost as beautiful to drive as it looks. I finally had a chance to drive a Huntley Sport in real life. And you also have a chance to experience this exact Range Rover Sport, both for long term because it's up for sale, and for short term it's available via autolevi.ee, which is essentially a Estonian version of Turo, where you can rent out regular people's sometimes not that regular cars, like this Range Rover Sport. There are plenty of interesting vehicles to check out. The address of the website is available in the description below. I have used Autolevi for years now, and for so far I have always been satisfied with the service.